Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. As always, my name is Cory, and this is a continuation of my top 50 favorite board games of all time, the 2021 edition still, even though it is now 2022 officially. But in today's segment, I'm going over my games 25 up to game number 16. Let's get started. Okay, and like I said, today's segment are games 25 up to game number 16, so we are getting dangerously close to the top 10 games of all time, in my opinion. So getting very excited to talk about these games here. And starting with game number 25, it was number 23 last year, and one of the very first worker placement games I ever played, one of the very first games I ever purchased, and this game is Stone Age. In Stone Age, like I said, it's a worker placement game. It's a nice lighter to medium weight game that I really think most anybody can get into and enjoy. In Stone Age, you are placing workers out to gather resources, to simply build out huts in front of yourself, or to complete these contract cards that give you points by the end of the game. Whoever has the most points wins, and it's really neat the way that the worker placement works in this game. You are sending workers out to different locations, like I said, to get resources. But the amount of dice you get to roll to see how many resources you get is based on the amount of workers you send to each location. And if a resource is more difficult to get, it'll have a higher divisible number. If it's easier to get, it'll have a lower divisible number. So for example, if you were sending workers out to the wood location to gather some wood, you have to divide the total result by 3. So if you roll a couple dice and you roll a 9, you divide it by 3, so you get 3 pieces of wood. Whereas if you're going out to the river to try to pan for some gold, you have to divide whatever result you get by 6. So it's a lot more difficult to get gold, as one would expect. So kind of push your luck, or kind of mitigating what resources you truly need and what resources you could potentially live without, because that really depicts or depends on the amount of workers you send to each location. I love the push at your luck and the whole push and pull to it. It's all about getting those points, but really nice, simple, light, very easy to teach, very easy to play, but a lot of fun. And I've been playing it for years and still love it today. So that is Stone Age. Okay, moving into game number 24, it was number 15 last year, so dropping quite a few places, and gotta be honest, I haven't gotten this game to the table for quite some time, but really do love the heck out of this game. As you can see, number 24 on the list is still extremely high. Very, very solid game. I do require that you get the Essential Edition to this game. The old edition, the first edition, was just not worth playing. I completely hated it, but I got my hands on the Essential Edition after that came out, a couple of years after the first one had come out, and it just completely turned the game on its head. Just love everything about this game. Another worker placement game, but you're building out your own vineyard, and this is viticulture. Specifically, like I said, viticulture, the Essential Edition. I know a lot of people who play this game say that you absolutely need the Tuscany expansion to make this game almost worth playing, or to make it that much better, and I don't necessarily agree. I do play with the Tuscany expansion. It does add a few things. It adds some flavor. It adds some more strategy and depth to the game, a little bit more complexity, but definitely not essential. But the Essential Edition of the base game is definitely essential. So in viticulture, like I said, you are sending workers out to these various worker placement locations on the board. The one thing about the expansion is that it adds 2 additional seasons to the board. So instead of just kind of more of like a spring-summer side and then the fall-winter side to the board, in the expansion it adds spring, summer, fall, and winter. You are sending workers out on 1 season at a time, and in the springtime you might be able to do certain things that are different than the summertime locations, and the fall time and the winter time, and the different seasons have different worker placement spots that do different actions for you. But the really cool thing in this game is you can't move on to the next season until everybody has kind of decided on, okay, we're now finished with the current season that we're on, and the amount of workers that I have back in my vineyard, I'm going to save those for future seasons. So it's cool just trying to decide on what to send out during, or how many workers to send out during each season to do different things. You are basically building out these vines in your vineyard. You are growing grapes. You are gathering the grapes and crushing them in the crush pads. You are turning them into wine, various types of wine: red wine, white wine, sparkling wine, blush, wine, and you are keeping them in your cellars and having the wine age. You are trying to get contracts from different people who are looking to buy the wine from you. And as your wine ages and gets better and progresses, then it might be at the point where your customer now wants that particular type of wine, so you can sell the wine to them for victory points. And it's just really cool. It really has the feeling of running your own vineyard, gathering these different cards to your hand that you can play for different special abilities too, to kind of change the way the game is played while you're playing the game. So has a whole lot of depth and strategy and a lot of fun to it, but keeping it in a nice like medium weight package. It's not like an extremely heavy Euro game. It's got that nice medium weight to it. So that is Viticulture Essential Edition. All right, now moving into my 23, my game number 23, it was number 4 last year, so a huge drop, and I think, I don't know what that is, I don't know what that attests to, but it's still just fantastic. It's one of my favorite Stefan Feld games of all time, and this game is Amerigo. Amerigo is awesome. I just really love it. As you can see, last year it was number 4 on my list. Still 23, still fantastic, still love the heck out of it. In Amerigo, the main thing with Amerigo is it's got a cube tower mechanism, where at the beginning of your turn you are dropping cubes into a tower, and whatever cubes fall out tells you basically what type of actions not only you can do, but the type of actions that you and all your opponents can do for that round. All the cubes are different colors as they pop out the bottom, and whatever color cube was the most that came out the bottom is the amount of an action you can do. But no matter how many cubes of any of the colors that came out, the colors tell you what actions you can do. So basically the way that works, like for example, let's say you have red, yellow, and green cubes that popped out of the bottom. So let's say there's like 5 different color cubes, and you throw them all in, and some of the cubes get stuck in the tower as they're falling, so not all of them fall out the bottom every time. But let's say like the green, yellow, and red cubes did fall out the bottom. So that tells you you can do the green, yellow, or red action on your turn. But let's say there were 5 red cubes, 4 yellow, and only 3 green. Well, the 5 red cubes was the highest number of any one color. So you can do 5 actions of any one of those 3 colors. It's kind of a neat mechanism the way that works. You could do 5 actions of red, 5 actions of yellow, or 5 actions of green, because 5 was the most of any one color. And the different actions are, you can send your ship around to different islands, you can gather polyomino tiles and buy them onto your side of the board. Once the tiles have been bought, there's another action that allows you to place them on these islands. You're trying to fill them out in different ways to get victory points. You're trying to cover up these different resources to gather them for different victory points also. And there's just so many different things you're doing, all centrally revolved around this one simple mechanism of just dropping a handful of cubes into a tower and seeing what cubes come out the bottom. Kind of thematic for it being such a dry Euro, but one that I've just really loved and appreciated the design ever since I've gotten the game. So that is Amerigo. Okay, my game number 22 was number 9 last year, so another big drop. I do not know what the heck's going on with my list this year. This is just crazy, but number 9 was a fantastic spot on the list for this. Number 22, still a fantastic spot on the list for it. And this game is Blood Rage. One of my favorite Cool Mini or Not games ever created. Blood Rage is just fantastic. I love the card drafting mechanism, and I love area control, and this game combines both of those in such a satisfying way. You're drafting out cards to have these combat cards, or to give you different cards that allow you to put out these big monsters, or just all these different things. You're drafting cards also that give you quests, and if you fulfill a quest during a round, you get victory points for that quest. And it's just really cool to try to send different warrior units or different monster units to different locations on the board to fight for control over different regions. But all in the while, the main thing that drives that is that card drafting at the beginning of each round. This game is only 3 rounds long. The cards that you pass around the table and draft from get better and better with each round. So by round 3, you're getting these really crazy strong cards to your hand. But it's got that element where you might want to draft a card that your neighbors need more than you, just to keep that card from them. You can strategize around drafting cards that gives you victory points for dying. So like the low-key strategy, you can die for victory points in this game if you feel like you're falling behind, or if that's just kind of the main strategy you want to try. You can get yourself in situations where you know your warriors are just going to be massively destroyed. Send them to Valhalla, get the glory for that, and just win the game that way. So that is Blood Rage. And just beating out Blood Rage this year at number 21, kind of a similar area control-ish game, but in a different trilogy of games. This is the Matago, or a part of the Matago trilogy, not the Cool Mini or Not trilogy. This is brand new to the list. It has never been on the list. This is the first debut for it at number 21, and a game that I've probably played this past year just as much as Blood Rage, but it just barely ekes it out this year. And at number 21, it is Cyclades. Cyclades was a huge surprise to me, just a huge surprise hit. I don't own the game. Ryan from Talking Cardboard, he owns the game, and when he first brought it to the table, I was kind of iffy on it. You know, I'd heard about Cyclades. I hadn't really watched too many videos on how it had been played, and it didn't really interest me a whole lot. But as soon as we started playing it and really kind of getting into it for the first even like 15 to 20 minutes of gameplay, it just grabbed me and sucked me in. It was just that much fun. And I think the biggest wow factor in this game is that the presence, like the board presence and like the artwork on the box and everything that the game kind of shows to present to you doesn't really, it's something different than what you would expect once you start playing it. And it's the whole bidding for your actions that really threw me for a loop. I was not expecting it to have your own blind player screens that you're hiding your income behind, and you actually have to bid for different actions on the main board, but you have to be able to afford the action that you're bidding for. You can't bid higher than the amount of coins you have hidden behind your screen. It creates a lot of tension, not knowing what other players have behind their screens, how much money they've got. Most of the time, you don't know the income that other players have, so you are just kind of taking a shot in the dark, or trying to weigh the risk reward and trying to manage that yourself in your head on, you know, how much do I really want to spend on this action. Like I said, it's got that area control, so different actions will allow you to move ships around the board. Other actions will allow you to move land units around the board. Other actions will initiate combat, or trying to gather these cards to try to create these sets of cards to fulfill another win condition. Cyclades has just been a lot of fun every time we played it. It can run a little bit long every once in a while if the gameplay is kind of in a stalemate back and forth, but if they were able to fix that, I know I hear rumblings of a second edition coming out soon. If they're able to kind of fix that, the game length to not really get drawn out, this game would just, I think it would climb even higher on my list. But still at 21, and the fact that it beat out Blood Rage is enough said there. So that is Cyclades. Okay, my number 20 game was number 7 last year, so another big drop, but still 20, fantastic game. Made my top 20, so this is great to see, and I think this game will forever be at least in my top 50 games of all time forever, because this is just an evergreen of a game for me and a mainstay in my collection, a game that I'm never going to ever get rid of, and this game is Queen Domino. So in Queen Domino, it's just a tile placement game. A nice, simple, light tile placement game, but it has a lot of unique, nice little extra things added to the top of it. I have not played King Domino, which is the easier version of this game, or the more simplified version, but Queen Domino has just been a blast for everybody every time I've played it. Anybody I've shown the game to has just loved the game. You are taking a player pawn, putting it on top of a tile that you want to draft to play into your area in front of you on your turn. You are trying to match these different sides of the tiles. As long as one of the sides of the tile matches one of the other sides of the tile that you're placing it next to, then it is a legal move, and you are trying to match up these colonies. The more squares of colonies that you match them up against, you multiply that by the number of crowns that are in that territory, and ultimately that's how many victory points it gives you at the end of the game. So for example, if you had like 3 forest squares touching each other at the end of the game, and 2 of those squares had a crown in it, you would take the 3 times the 2 crowns for a total of 6 victory points. Another thing that Queen Domino adds over King Domino are these knights that you can tax your land, and you can tax your land for different amounts of income, and as you're getting those coins for income, you can also draft these red tiles into your kingdom, and when you're drafting a red tile, you can use the coins that you'd made in previous turns to buy tiles to build on top of those red tiles that give you these different endgame scorings and some variability to the way that the endgame scoring works. Just a little bit of added layer of complexity to a simple tile placement game. Still not super heavy, still can explain the game in 2 minutes flat, and everybody can understand it. So it's not like it's too complex for its own good. I just really, really love the heck out of it. So that is Queen Domino. All right, and number 19 was number 37 last year, so it has jumped up quite a bit. And I don't know, I play this game about the same amount every year. I only pull this game out a few times a year. It is a 2-player exclusive game. Can't play with any other player counts. Some years I think about it more and I'm liking it more and more. Better than other years, but this year, for whatever reason, it jumped to number 19, and this game is Raptor. So in Raptor, one player takes on the Velociraptors, and the other player takes on the scientists that are trying to capture the raptors, and both sides are very, very asymmetric in what you're trying to do. The raptors are trying to either kill all the scientists or trying to escape their baby raptors off the board before the scientists can capture either the mom raptor or enough of the baby raptors to win the game. That's kind of the theme in a nutshell. It's got played on a small board, and it's got some tactical movement and attacking and that sort of thing. But the crux of this game and the way that this game works mechanically that really sings to me are the card play in this game. Everybody starts off with the same deck of cards. You shuffle it up and draw 3 cards to your hand, and you don't know what your opponent has in their hand because, like I said, you shuffle everything up and you just draw randomly. But you know that each deck of cards are numbered 1 through 9, and you know you have a cheat sheet in front of you of what the special abilities of each of the cards are for your opponent. But the coolest part in this game is the card play. On your turn, you simply take 1 card out of your hand, place it face down. When both players have done so, you simultaneously reveal the cards to see what the cards the players have played. Whoever played the higher number card subtracts the lower number card from its total value and gets that many basic actions to use with their player pawns. So for example, if I played an 8 card and my opponent played a 4, the difference of 8 minus 4 would be 4. So I could use those 4 basic actions, which is like movement and a few other things that you can do, that very basic but very essential to the game, to move my pieces around the board and to try to position them and get them where I need to try to ultimately win the game. But what's cool is that the player who played the lower card does not get to take any of those much needed, necessary basic actions, but they get to trigger their special ability that's on their card. And the special abilities are very unique, very asymmetric, very different from player to player, but also very powerful and much needed to the gameplay. So I just love trying to get into the head of my opponent and trying to figure out what they're going to do versus what I need to do, and it's just really cool. So if you haven't tried it yet, definitely give it a shot. That is a Raptor. All right, and my number 18 was number 29 last year, and he's still holding strong, kind of going up here and going up in the ranks for good reason. I don't have any of the expansions. This is just base game only, and I still really love the heck out of this game. This game is 5 Tribes. In 5 Tribes, it's got that Mancala mechanism on steroids. You are setting out this grid of tiles in front of you as the main board randomly at the start of the game. You are seeding each tile with 3 meeples out of a bag at random. There's a bunch of these different colors of meeples that you're sending out onto these tiles, and each color meeple gives you a different ability with it. The basic high overlook of the game at its core is you are just grabbing a handful of meeples from one of the tiles, dropping off 1 on each tile as you travel along the board, and whatever color meeple you land on the last tile with, you end up picking up all of the same color that you ended with, and depending on the color of the meeple you picked up and how many of that color of the meeple you picked up, you get that amount of whatever action that color gives you. So you can hire these different djinns and like genies to give you these special abilities. You're trying to get victory points. Different color meeples just plain simply give you victory points. You're trying to clear out some tiles and assassinate some of the meeples to clear out a tile. So you can put a control marker on it to show that you staked claim to that tile, and now you control that tile, and you get that amount of victory points that are listed on that tile. And it's just really cool. Very, very simple mechanism, very simple to play the game. So one that's easier to learn, harder to master, and one that you have to be careful because if you make the wrong move, you might set your opponents up for an even better move after you. So that is 5 Tribes. All right, number 17 on the list is brand new to the list. It is debuting at number 17. When I played this game first, it just hit me like wearing your favorite electric guitar and hitting the most beefiest power chord ever. This game is just Explaining the game and how it works and how it plays sounds extremely dull and really boring, but it's just one of those games that you have to try for yourself to find out if you're going to like it, and if this is the type of game that you do like, you will love it. So this game is In the Hall of the Mountain King. In this game, you are simply digging through a mountain to basically try to uncover these artifacts and find these different pedestals that you can put these statues on, and you're just trying to get victory points in various ways in kind of a boring way. It sounds really boring. Literally just digging through a mountain to try to get victory points. It doesn't sound that interesting, right? But it is really interesting. The deeper you dig into the mountain, the harder it is to dig into it, but the more victory points you get. Like I said, you're trying to uncover these pedestals where you can place and build these statues on top of to give yourself those victory points for getting particular statues in the required locations and that sort of thing. So it just has just a ton of just these really simple things that you're doing, but in a very cool way. The other cool mechanism in this game is kind of a cascading resources effect. There is a part of the game where you can purchase these trolls to be a part of your troll pyramid, and when you place the troll into your pyramid, whatever other trolls that troll is touching beneath it then also generate their resources again. So as you're building up your pyramid of cards, you have this cascading effect where you're getting multiple resources multiple times, but only if you place those trolls in particular areas within that pyramid. Very fun, very satisfying. Like I said, I can't really describe the game any better than that or make it sound any more interesting than that, but if you like Euro games, if you like the idea of digging through the mountain and trying to deal with this cascading mechanism of elements and resources and trying to maximize the best time to do which action, because you can't really do both every round, you have to pick and choose what you're doing, then this game would definitely be for you. I'm more on the dry side of things. I like my dry Euros. I like Euro mechanisms. I like the intertwining mechanisms to create a more in-depth strategy game, and this game definitely did not seem like it would be the one for that, but it was the one for that, and a game that I'm glad that I gave a shot. And yeah, I highly suggest it, highly recommend it, and one that you should go out and try right now. All right, and number 16 is the last game on the list for today. It was number 13 last year. Another two-player only game. One that's a little bit higher than the previously mentioned Raptor, but this game is Skulk Hollow. Skulk Hollow is just fantastic. Like I said, it's two-player only. Hopefully that'll change when they come out with the second version of this game, where it's more of like it's called, what is it, Maul Peak. So like bears mauling people and kind of that sort of thing, or that sort of theme. So it's got bears. In this version of the game, it's got the fox heroes. But basically, one player takes on the Foxen heroes, and the other player takes on this a big giant behemoth of a creature, and both players are doing different things. Basically, the player that takes on the fox heroes are trying to take down the behemoth, and if they can chop off its limbs and take it down and destroy the monster, then they win the game. But the player who's playing the monster, they get like 4 different monsters to choose from in the base box, and each monster has a completely different win condition. So you can, every game will feel completely different. The whole system and the whole game is just driven by a hand of cards. The cards are very simple on it. They have either a top action or a bottom action. When you play the card, you can choose either the top or the bottom to trigger. It's everything from movement to moving people on the map, or using an attack to use an arrow to shoot up at the big giant, or each big giant creature has a different starting deck that they start with that has different cards, but even they just have one of 2 options. Usually the big behemoth giant only has 2 actions on their turn, so they only can play 2 cards out. As soon as they trigger 1 action on each of the 2 cards, then their turn is over. But the fox heroes typically get 3 actions, so they're a little bit quicker, a little bit more agile. Another cool thing with this game too that I forgot to mention was the fox can actually jump on to the big creature itself, and you have this whole separate sideboard that is a cutout of the big creature with its different limbs and different areas that you can actually jump onto it. So when you're in the same square on the main board as the big creature, you can jump onto the creature and essentially take that fox hero off the board and place it onto that separate tile that you can then move, run up the leg of the monster and then onto its arm and then onto its head, and you're trying to attack these different body parts and trying to take them down because they each have a different amount of health that requires them to, to defeat them. And once you defeat all the different body parts, then you win the game. But each body part for the giant creature gives them a special ability also. So if you take down their left arm, they might not get to use their left arm ability anymore. Or if you take down their head, they can't use their special ability that's linked to their head. So you're trying to weaken it in different areas as you're playing and just trying to decide which body part to go after first. And all in the meanwhile, the player who's playing the big giant creature has just their unique win condition that sometimes they would just want to leave the fox and heroes alone and kind of go off and do their own thing and try to sneak in a victory that way. But the fox and heroes just keep running back and just being a pest to the giant. So just a lot of fun. A lot of crazy fun, and I could just talk about this game for hours, and I've already been talking about it long enough, so I'm going to stop now. But that game is Skulk Hollow. All right, and that does it for today's segment. Games 25 down to number 16, getting dangerously close to my top 10 games of all time. I think in the next segment, I'm just going to do games 15 to 11. So it's just going to be a quick 5-game segment that's kind of ramping up to the grand finale of the top 10. And I'm going to get other members of Talking Cardboard involved in the top 10 videos. So stay tuned for that. They are going to give their top 10 favorite games of all time live on camera with me. So that'll be a ton of fun to just come into the list blind. Nobody will know what other people's top 10s are, and we'll just kind of be surprised and excited and maybe appalled by some of their choices that they choose for their top 10 favorite games of all time. But anyway, I hope you are all enjoying the list here so far and all the different segments. Leave comments below of what your favorite games are of all time, and I'll comment back and we can get some back and forth chat going. And also, if you like the content you see here on the channel, consider subscribing. We really do appreciate it. It's what keeps our channel going. We hate to ask for it every time, but it's just something we need to do. So we would really appreciate that. But until next time, you all have fun gaming.